meeting and public hearing of the Committee on Sustainable Development Goal Innovation Future Thinking is called. So our all matters related to the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the assessment of the country's performance in meeting goals, policies, strategies, and actions for the development of desired futures by using multi-disciplinary approach, making possibilities, outlining choices, and assessing alternatives. Section 30. This is the first hearing, and I have shared the past two congresses. I'm happy to share this again. There's a lot of things, but first do a catch up. That's why all of you are here. Provide us with updates that we need. This committee is designated to track where we are with our SDGs, prepare for various futures, and shift our mindset to futures thinking as a major policy reform. So what we have is our Senate Resolution number 65, where precisely we will ask support and tell us where we are. We all know that we only have 5 years till 2030. The SDGs were developed precisely with a specific timeline in mind, and that is 2030. That is less than 5 years from now. A little bit of history for the record. From 2020, it's adopted the welcome of Senator Lauren. Thank you so much for joining me. From 2015, the Philippines adopted the Millennial Development Goals, known as the MDGs, a global agenda. I started supporting as early soon after I became a senator, and learned that these efforts, much has been achieved, but there is still so much more. If the importance and urgency of these goals after 2015, firstly, I felt very strongly about advocating for a committee that oversees sustainable development. And as important as overseeing, we work with the committees in the Senate, find a comprehensive solutions. Many times, have very passionate leaders or chairpersons in the committees, but there is no opportunity to align with the other government agencies and the other Senate committees, precisely because we can. This has been a goal of mine ever since this committee was formed in 2019. By way of support everyone, perhaps from record that since 2021, they able to provide funding, futures thinking funding for the established futures offices, and research for SDGs and futures of artificial intelligence and solutions, including the state universities, development. It also has fund class. Whenever I travel around the country, I encourage LGU heads, party heads that I center needs to the development academy needs for more training. That has been ongoing. There are actually numerous reports coming from one research that their graduates have done. So I can end this for now. I'll have a lot more input. Have like 4 more pages that I can share for expertise. State that I
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt pertinent rules of the Senate and the rules of procedure governing increase in aid of legislation as written.
There are no objections. It's pertinent to the Senate and the rules governing raising aid legislation are hereby adopted as a rule. Senator Lauren, I'm pretty sure you'd like an opening statement. Or is yours?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. First of all, I appreciate the creation of this committee, which really monitors our compliance with the Sustainable Development Goals. I recall this was created when I was not in the Senate, but I was in Congress. I'm not certain if there is a counterpart committee in the House of Representatives. I would also like to say that it was in 2009 that the Climate Change Committee was created. So the two standalone committees were created by women who believe that both the Sustainable Development Goals and climate action, when it was not yet fully understood or perhaps embraced by government, were created by the Senate. So we know that at the core of our work, government, it's there's a simple but profound duty, and that is to provide better lives for our people. We always say that, but we know that it's all enshrined in the Sustainable Development Goals that gives us a set of international commitments, like a guidepost and a set of targets to help measure how far we have gone in fulfilling that duty. It would be instructional and helpful to the chair in this representation if during our budget hearings in the departments, if they can give us an assessment of the Philippines' compliance to the SDGs. After more than 2 decades of experience here in the Senate, we've seen a recurring challenge. Agency reports often look good on paper, yet they don't always reflect the reality that our people experience on the ground. So this brings me to my concern on the SDGs. Do the scores and numbers truly mirror the lives of our people, or are they prepared merely to look favorable in international reporting? Are national targets crafted with the people's well-being at their heart, or simply to meet external benchmarks? To address this, we filed two measures: the Results-Based Governance Act and the Open Government Data Act. These bills seek to establish a national framework that ensures that our data, our monitoring, and evaluation are not just bureaucratic exercises, but genuine tools for accountability and people-centered government. So I hope that these measures will be realized in this Congress so that the data we gather and hold on can finally tell the true story of the Philippine people. I'd also like to mention, Madam Chair, that from 2015-19, the SDGs were being streamed in the GAA. I hope every year it is done. That was always my amendment because it would never be in the net. But from 2015, that would always be my amendment. And when I became chair, I made it mandatory that it be included. Perhaps now, let's see if it's in the net. If it's not yourself, we can both include it as a special provision in the GAA, the general.
I recall that Secretary now
So that
had it at but I think she made it
can check.
yes, but we can check that one.
Yes.
And sana we can work together in holding our institution account.
Yeah.
That's because it's quite easy. I mean, maybe you have make it easier for all of us.
Because the GAA becomes stronger if you enshrine or mainstream the SDGs. In fact, Madam Chair, I also included the Yogo Framework for Action. That's on disaster resilience as well. So we'll check the net if it's there. If it's not there, you and I can actually make it our joint provision for it's an insertion, but not insertion monetary. Thank you for that.
Thank you. So let's proceed. We only have a few resource persons with agencies represented by officers also. We can give each resource person roughly 10 minutes, but you normally usually ask the question till the end, but if there's one or just other members, I'm very happy to see. So he's that have clarified the project right away. But if you have a series of questions, okay, you can ask. So we have Department of Planning and Development. We have Institute already, United Nations, Philippines, and United Nations. Yeah. So kindly introduce yourself, state your position, and then I think presentation, so we'll be able to follow along. Let's us.
You can share that, you know, share it. So, UN shows. So, move to the next. So this is just a brief presentation summary essentially of voluntary national review report fees for 2025. So this is the fourth VNR report that says as part of the So this is essentially VNR essential process voluntary assessment progressive SDGs. Basically, it's their lessons and share as part of so efforts. So the theme for the 2025 ENR was driving transformation for the 2030 agenda through SDG localization, collaborative partnerships, and development statistical developments. The key messages that differ. Next slide. ENR was that one, we've made some progress and some good progress in implementing the 2030 agenda. Second is that this VNR process has been useful for us. Third, there are some experiences we are able to share with our international partners and countries in terms of needs implementation. Patients who introduced the importance of the agenda. We've in fact adopted the whole of nation plus approach. Essentially, that one, it's important there's a cooperation between the national and local governments, local government approach, that there is a cooperation between government stakeholders, and partners, the academic, private sector, society, also cooperation with various economies and our international as well. So this is the meat of the report, essentially looking at the pace of progress assessment that's done independently by the Philippine Statistics Authority. So what we've done is we've compared the assessment for 2022 and the assessment for 2024. So in general, I think you'll notice that for a number of the SDG goals, we are making progress with SDG 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, 14, and 15. Also, I think important to note that for some of the goals, like 2, 5, 7, 8, and 9, these were previously tagged as regressing. Score was negative, so the value of the indicators essentially was even below baseline value for these goals. Now, a number of them are now back in the positive carried. So I'll go to the next slide just to some details of this issue. For SDG 1, that's on poverty. This was largely driven, the movement here, by the drop in poverty incidence from 18.1% at 1 to 18.5% 2023. For the SDG 2 zero hunger, we believe this was influenced by the improvement in terms of the incidence of stunting among children under 5, which is down to 23.6% in 2023 from 26.7% in 2020. SDG 5 on gender, we see improvement also from, especially for the target for forms of violence against women and girls, which was that as progressing, so negative in 2022. It's now considered on track.
This is where I'll actually want to go back. Let's go back to one kasi I looked at your presentation. Basically, you won't be presenting in depth, no, per item. So as you have started highlighting per item. Now, nakakatatanong para so balik kami to issue one. So for SDG 1, and basically what we're doing is we're comparing 2020, which is a good start. So basically no change, no? We're forming. So what are we doing right? Maybe that's what you can tell me. If you have that. What are we doing right, and what are low hanging fruits that we can try to work on? And then what is the biggest challenge? I think for a brief summary that goes for the questions.
Yeah, so for poverty, as I mentioned, in fact, we saw an improvement, and that's why you see an increase in the bar from the blue to the red. Yeah, but we came from a pandemic, as you remember, Center, where in poverty incidence in fact increased, no, from 2015 to 2018. So we have now reduced that back 15.5, no, from more than 18% in 2021. So what we're trying to do is go back to that high growth path that we have experienced prior to the pandemic, because what our analysis of our partners shows is it's really the sustained growth in the economy that has produced a lot more in better quality jobs for the past 2 decades that has allowed our countrymen to lift themselves out of poverty. Especially creation of jobs or productive jobs outside of agriculture.
Ganyan ang discussion. I'll park this here now for future discussion. Part of finance, we always talk about how soon we are targeting up to last country. And it breaks my heart to hear that because I know we still have millions in poverty. So it's a fact. So I know there is a definition of what is an upper middle class, but at the end of the day, we're talking about lives and millions of lives that are living in extreme poverty. So that's something I can make a quick statement now. We'll never end if we go into that. Make a quick statement that one part is want to say something about it. Please move on to the next estimate.
I'll wait then ask the PSAs if based on different survey result on self-rated, we actually went down. But in your presentation, we improved, right? But you answer first, and then I'll ask you that.
So with respect to the unique per middle country stages, as you mentioned, Madam Senator, that's a World Bank classification, in fact. So they look at essentially average incomes per country, and that's how they determine it. And in this case, we're quite close to that threshold that we have defined for upper middle income countries. It doesn't mean that poverty has been eradicated for middle income economy. Our own projection targets, as you'll see in another slide, is that we will still have poor people by 2028. But what we'd like to see is a reduction from double-digit poverty rates to a single-digit poverty.
Just saying the average, no? And I mean, there's so many reports that tell us how skew are not us, not just the Philippines, but the world and different countries skew the reports to make it glossier than it is. Because if you look at the average, all you need is a few billionaires and that already averages out a few million in poverty. So I'll rest my point there. Kindly respond to Senator Lord. Go on to the next.
Perhaps, Madam Chair, what we could have later on be presentation by NEDA of what are the requirements, what are we missing, the middle income. But then again, how is it measured? If it's general, the economy, or it should be per capita also, the income per family, and are the poor growing in number, and how you determine the self-rated poverty? Because based on what NEDA presents, the DepDev, is there supposedly an improvement, but you're comparing it to 2020 pandemic. I'm not certain if the SWS is correct, but self-rated poverty as of last year, 2024, there were 60% of families consider themselves poor. It went up, but based on the DepDev figures, it went down. So I'm not certain what is the basis of this. Are you familiar with the SWS survey that it went up from 59% to 63%, and families who consider themselves as poor from 16.3 to 17.4. So it last year was the highest in historical context in terms of self-rating poverty. So I'm trying, Madam Chair, to reconcile the report of DepDev and the SWS survey, which refers to 2020. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we're aware of the SWS report. As you pointed out, these are based on self-rated responses of the survey responses. The indicator we are using is based on a survey, but it's based on a survey of incomes and expenditures, not whether people feel poor or not. So that's the main difference there. So it's based on objective assessment based on resources people have to spend versus threshold. It's been said. There are certainly, given the differences in methodology, there are naturally going to be differences. So one look at. But if you look at trends over time, especially over longer periods of time, the trends are quite similar in share. Over time, especially over the last 2 decades, poverty has fallen, especially prior to the pandemic. It's really the pandemic.
Then, Madam Chair, I would not make the pandemic as a benchmark, because the pandemic, it, no, it happened without anyone being prepared in the world. So if the pandemic is the benchmark, sorry to say that's wrong, because you're coming from below. And if you say, umakyat tayo mula pandemic, linuloko natin ang sarili natin eh. You should compare yourself, we should compare ourselves to 2018 and 19. Have we reached the pre-pandemic level? You cannot say, we are better now, there are more jobs, people are eating better compared to 2022, the pandemic. We're fooling ourselves. So please, NEDA, when you come here, prepare an accurate from the pre-pandemic level to the present level 2024. Sorry, Madam Chair, I just had to be fair. Hindi pwede. Just like, for example, tourism. When they say, we're better than the pre-pandemic, wala naman lumalabas nun eh. So the presentations, and I hope all agencies warning them, if their comparison in the budget hearings will be pandemic levels, no, it should be pre-pandemic level to 18-19, not the height of the pandemic when the world economy was closed. Sorry ha, I'm not galit. I'm just trying to stress a point. So when you come back, please agree to that. You're not doing service to committee. You should be realistic. When you compare 2022 and 2024, syempre, lumalabas ng tao, syempre kumakain na. Hindi yan fair. Oo. So, kayo to 18 at 19 pre-pandemic level. Tapos syempre, pandemic, alam natin babagsak yan. Pero ihambing natin yung 2024-25 sa 2018-19, baka hindi. Mas mahirap ngayon ang tao.
I totally agree. So, can you, because I don't think we can have a hearing next week in as much as I wanted. It's Monday's a holiday and we have ready the no? But can you give us the same chart that you're giving us now, but make it 2017?
Unfortunately, Madam Chair, this is pace of progress indices are prepared by PSA. It was
PSA.
for
So,
the 2022.
So PSA, can you give this, but compare it to 2017 or 2018 or whatever year you want, but pre-pandemic? Can you do that?
Madam Chair, if I may just quickly respond. So this is pace of progress index for SDG goal 1. But for the poverty incidence itself, we have figures for 2018, 2021. In
Okay,
2018,
wait lang. Before you go into the details, no, I have to manage our time, and I'm the one who asked you to go into this. Pause first, so that we can see the big. First question: can you do what we're asking you to do, which is the next time you come here? But what I'm asking is you first to send it to us because I won't have a hearing next week. So when we have a hearing the following week, we have already had a chance to study the same thing, but comparing 2024 pre-pandemic date, 27, maybe 2016. Can you do that?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Sorry
Pwede?
for being late. Yes,
Okay,
that can be
diba?
done, Madam
Oo.
Chair.
Okay, and then the explanation that you're giving us now, which is basically you're saying what is the reason why SDG 1 is slightly increased, what is the reason SDG 2 was from below above, then can you already put those indicators there? So when we come, diretso na tayo, really ask your questions. Okay? Because now what I'm gonna ask you to do is, okay, let's move on. You already said you have indicators for the poverty instead of you have that. But for example, in goal number 3, I'm gonna ask you, really? So we were up on target in 2020, but they're down now, so I would still want to just very quickly highlight these things and then answer questions. Okay? Because if we keep asking now, then we can finish everyone. So maybe just proceed and then I'll just take note of all my questions. So you can mention the poverty incident because Senator Lauren wanted to hear it.
thank you, Madam Chair. So the poverty incidence in 2018 was 16.6%. That increased to 18.1%, and it's now down to 15.5% as of 2020. So, to next slide. So on this slide, I'll start with SDG 14, which is as assessed by the PSA, considered on track. On this slide, so SDG 14.
Let's go to 2, 3, 4.
Okay,
Run it by us again.
okay. So SDG 2, so this shows an improvement as well. So we think this may have been driven by the improvement in incidence of stunting among children, which is down to 23.6% in 2023 from 26.7% in 2020.
Ganito tayo. If what you're going to report now is basically a comparison of 20 and 2024, let's just stop because we both don't want to hear that comparison. Okay. Now, if you have, like I said, if you have information that contributes to our understanding of why we are not yet on target, what we're doing good, what we're doing well, what we're not doing well, then just share that bit of information. Otherwise, let's move forward because we don't want to hear the comparison of 2022 because we're just going to react to each one.
be fair to them then that they're basing it on PSA research, but you should have your research. But what I would suggest, Madam Chair,
No, but who decides to present to us 2022 to 2024? Because that's your problem. Why do you choose to present?
from a low,
Yeah.
coming from a pandemic low. Gawin nyo, pre-pandemic, tapos pandemic,
Okay lang.
understandably low,
Oo.
and then please compare to the UN organizations, to the FAO, to WHO, to UNDP, para makita nyo, and other local credible research organizations. Because, for example, you said sa hunger, no, according to the FAO report 2024, half the population, 51 million Filipinos, experience moderate to severe food insecurity in 2021-23. Sabihin mo na, kasi pandemic noon. Okay, understood. Tapos may SWS, 25.9, so 1/4 of the population reported involuntary hunger. So perhaps we can have the PSA, we can have the UN organizations reports, and we can compare, and we can see how sometimes government reports are different or vary from other reports. I'm not saying who's correct, who's wrong. It's just confusing. And I'll say this, we in government should not window dress or sugarcoat, because if you give us window dressed or sugar-coated reports, so we do not look bad in this administration, the lawmakers will have a wrong budgeting, allocation of resources. Okay na pala. Wala na palang hungry, wala na palang malnourished o stunted. Okay, ilagay na lang sa iba. Lagay sa flood control, sa nutrition. Okay, I'm exaggerating. So, we should be accurate. Hindi kami nagagalit, ganyan lang ako mag-passionate. Ang PSA kailangan pag-research at ang NEDA, siguro ang mga 3 sources ng research ninyo, UN, local research. Pero I concur with the chair, we request for comparison sa pre-pandemic level so that we're not coming from very below. Kasi mukhang maganda, tumaas, galing pandemic. Thank you, Madam Chair.
So, Madam Chair, just to confirm that when this was prepared, there's no pre-pandemic index prepared like this. That's why we could not use a pre-pandemic comparison. There are indicators that support this. That's what we can show you pre-pandemic to the latest. The other reason why we have a comparison of 2022 versus 2024 was because this, as I mentioned, presented the UN as part of the PNR, is that every 3 years. The last one was in 2022. So we were trying to explain that.
But you have another one in 2019. Kasi
Yes,
every
but
3 years.
There was no pace of progress.
There was no.
No pace of progress index prepared for pre-pandemic. So this series.
As atin. Is it possible to ask the microphone to be toned down just a bit? It's I feel like it's overpowering us. And I don't think Senator Lauren and I want to shout. Right? I don't think they can hear us. Anyway, so going back, ASEC, so basta, you can provide us pre-pandemic data. Okay, so let's move along. I want to give everybody another time. So just mention the SDG and yeah, tell us, are we good? Are we bad? What can we do better if you have that data on you? Because baka that's not the presentation that you prepared, in which case, if you're just gonna tell us the comparison, then we don't wanna spend time to have the comparison. That's all you have.
Yes, what based on report.
So, go ahead. hold on.
For example, when you talk about maternal mortality, compare it naman to the 1990s, so syempre, mag-improve yun. So let's be realistic. Let's not compare other SDGs to 2022 during the pandemic, but if you want to do that, you can put the pre-pandemic. And when you're going to select an SDG of maternal mortality, don't just compare it. You can compare it more recent. Kung naman 1990, syempre, it will jump. And so maging realistic so we can make rational decisions. Thank you.
I would say 5 years, 10 years, things like that, or the end of the Millennium Development Goals, and then now. But anyway, okay. So let's just hear quickly from Mr. Kovac, from UN Philippines.
Honorable Madam Chair, Senator. Maybe I just want to come in at this stage as to aid our colleagues a little bit. I think it's important to emphasize that it's really difficult to compare data, since in this case 22, 24, or even before, because there's a different composition of indicators. Basically, the national systems, and this is one of the things that we as a UN are commending, are improving. The 8 national agencies are improving how many indicators they're including, etc. So one could say it's a methodological issue, but it's really difficult to compare, especially because not all the indicators are included. So I think that's one important point to make to aid colleagues. So even if you ask them basically to compare pre-pandemic, because pandemic is a serious disruptor, as you know, in terms of the data, how it impacts multiple developmental indicators. I think that comparison is not necessarily going to give you, it's not going to be comparable, let me put it that way. And our statisticians and colleagues can explain a little bit more into detail why, at least not with this set of SDG indicators as they are collected.
So it's not measurable. So how do we know where
I didn't say,
progress?
sorry, not that it's not measurable, it's not comparable. That's or it's difficult to compare because you have a different composition of the indicators. I mean, there are proxies. I'm sure they can come back with some ways to compare, but it's going to be far from ideal. But
How do you measure it then? If you should not compare years, what's your point of comparison? How do you measure? No, I would ask the UN, because the SDGs emanated from the UN. How would you measure a developing nation?
so SDGs, as you know, they are an intergovernmental consensus of all the member states. I think going also back to the reference you made in terms of the data that UN uses, we use strictly national data. We work closely with DevDev, PSA, etc., and also assist in terms of progressively help develop those national your systems. Again, I'm not saying one should not compare. It's just that as we compare, there's going to be a lot of footnotes to what extent that's comparable or not. And I think it's also important in this conversation that we're having is that to unpack, right? We have one particular SDG, let's say poverty, health, etc. It's really important to unpack and have a slightly broader conversation. SDG indicator and its tracking gives a certain, I would say, top level picture, but it's really important to unpack it further. Thank you.
Where we have to have a point of comparison as lawmakers, and we will help in crafting where resources are allocated. We cannot say that there's no way we can compare. Then, so we use the same methodology template. There must be a comparison. We must compare ourselves with our past selves. We must compare ourselves with our similarly situated neighbors in ASEAN. Cannot not compare. No, and it's not true. I'm sorry, I that we cannot not compare, because I have here list of ASEAN nations, and we are below average per my report here in terms of SDGs, while Thailand is above average. So to say, yes, so sila SDG specialists are nodding. So see, we can compare. So I will not accept, Madam Chair, with all due respect, our agencies and our friend from the UN Foreigners Office, that we cannot compare. We have who will guide us. How will we know if we're failing or we are progressing? And point of comparison must be with our own performance and our neighbors. Must teach us.
I think let's give the floor to BSA.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're the lead SDG monitoring agency. Is that you're the leader?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Kayo?
Election of the
Election, yeah. You're the custodian of official data for voluntary national recruitment and take note of the pace of progress, no? The progress reports. Tama ba?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Sige, maybe you can add clarity to this discussion.
Yeah, just provide maybe some perspective what
Sure.
from and saying, I think that what he's saying is, within each goal, there may be different being continuously added indicators. Just provide you some background, Madam Chair. Since we started in 2017 monitoring this framework,
Yeah.
The global framework started with 244 indicators. Now, with the latest UN Statistical Commission session last March 25, we now have 251. That's an addition of 7 indicators. So that
Well, then it's the difference with seven.
yeah,
If you're not able to add the seven, we didn't add the seven.
opo. So by and large, can compare, but there may be some areas where it's not really exactly,
Yes.
it's not exactly the same. There are additions and there are subtractions
I
there.
understand.
By and large, it's an index, so you can from one period to another actually see if there's progress. However, within each indicator, there may be specifics. Yun po
We
yun.
can take note of those nuances. Nakaka-inch din naman kami. Ayaw lang namin is that time really application comparison natin is natin here. Okay, sige. So, anyway, the report of asset cash is here. Let's not go into it kasi nga it's just a comparison with is there anything you want to add? So meron kang celebrating the path with some insight on what we can celebrate that and some organization. Why don't you discuss that already?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So let's go back to that slide. So these are basically some of the lessons and strategic directions we've identified are years with respect to achieving SDGs. If we can go back, I think. So one, of course, is the importance of domestic resource mobilization to fund SDGs. So here we are basically taking advantage of the program convergence budgeting modality that the DMIR provides. Agencies can work together in terms of achieving SDGs. Another is, of course, as I mentioned, the importance of working with our international partners is reach the resources and expertise that so third is expanding inclusivity and participation. We've already been doing this, for instance, through the creation of a stakeholders chamber. We will continue to widen that work through the sectors from vulnerable and marginalized sectors. Another one is in terms of enhancing the monitoring and reporting. It's been mentioned, there are some areas where we do not have enough data and statistics. So that's what we're working get together. Yes. So timely and segregate. Or number five is basically to uh, make sure that there's greater coordination between the voluntary reviews being done at national level, the subnational level, and the local level. Some LGUs have started to do their own VNRs or VLRs as well. And then lastly, as I said, given the importance of data, we are looking forward to the implementation community-based monitoring system that the PSA has rolled out together with the LGUs. So it gives more granular information, especially over time, in terms of how we're doing.
I'm glad you mentioned about the implementation of the based system. Is this being rolled out already in all provinces and institutes? And can we at any time ask that there is a statistics on how provinces, how lower province hanggang city
Oh.
or region?
Even down to the barangay.
Barangay
Possible.
readily available in
Oh,
PSA and
The enumeration has already been finished, and we have already started providing the data number of HUCs and municipalities, but it's not fully complete yet, Madam Chair. There are some LGUs that have yet to fully process the data.
yes. Can you say implementation of CPMS with regards to what all SDGs?
No, Madam
Sure,
Chair,
you
selected only as far as we know, it's around 18 SDG
that's
indicators.
fine. May I request please soft copy of all the 18 LGU 509 barangays of the province of Cavite and the 8 LGUs and the 280 barangays of the first district. I'll see how sure.
That can be
Already have or know of Cayetano's one. I'll see. Based, kailan niya natapos?
Po.
What year was this finished?
it was started in last year, sir. Last year,
It's
last quarter.
foundation. It's good.
That-
Ano mga report? Sige. Malaki sa mga LGBTQ brought out sa kanila.
it's part of the process, Madam Chair. What I said a while ago na, once the data is fully vetted and validated, it's going to be turned over to the LGUs for the utilization and
When you
implementation.
said it's almost complete.
It's not 100% fully disseminated to all the LGUs.
Yes, not completely disseminated, but
But
available.
yes,
Appreciate what I asked for. Meron na kayo.
we will verify if Antique and Tangas is already done. We can provide as soon as it's
Because I heard
possible.
you say you still are in the process of disseminating. If you're in the process of disseminating, that means you have it there on your
Yes, ma'am.
So share mo sa amin, dahil hindi naman ako LGU, but I would be interested to see po your feedback on these opportunities. Thank you.
Okay.
Anyway, the floor is yours. Mr. Cerezo, please, your presentation. Let's be mindful, we have 30 minutes. I want everyone to chance.
This will be a short presentation. The chair will just going to provide you a summary of the indicators that we are doing and the ones that are on track, the ones that need acceleration, and the ones that are sad to say regressing. For this week. So once again, Madam Chair, Senator Ligarda, good afternoon. Uh, we're going to show you a bit of the background of the pace of progress and the number of indicators that we have since been monitoring. And we're going to, next slide please, show you in a nutshell the current pace of progress goal-wise as well as indicator-wise, and then some of the ways forward that we have been we're trying to mitigate or develop or provide progress to the monitoring that we're doing. So as I said a while ago, Madam Chair, since the start of our monitoring and adoption of the global indicator framework, the SDGs, we started with 17 goals, 169 targets, and 244 indicators, which includes repeating indicators among the goals. But in our latest number of indicators, it's now at 251 or an additional of 7 indicators. Next slide, please. On the other hand, from the global framework, what the Philippines is able to only do are 158 indicators. So, and 98 targets. So from the 158 indicators, this is composed of 98 global indicators, 34 proxy indicators, and 26 supplemental indicators.
I don't know what it means.
Yun pong,
What does global indicator mean? It means it's aligned with the global standards.
yes,
Proxy means we have our own, which kinda
Yes.
is similar. Okay, and then supplemental, we also have our own that
In
we can just
addition.
add to the information.
yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. It's well stated. Next slide, please. So this, in a nutshell, is what our current situation is. The pace of progress for the goals since 2015. I guess Yusek Cancho has already provided this. Out of the 17 goals, we only have 2 goals, goals 12 and 14, that are expected to meet our targets in 2023, 2030 rather.
So-
And
Let me make a quick intervention. So for the record, you already have this. We can use it as the basis for the next discussion,
yes,
where we himayin natin yung isa-isa. And if you actually have more, well, yeah, more details that you can provide us so that before we even meet, we can I think we can digest more details the next. Okay, go ahead.
yes, Madam Chair. So from here, as you can see, out of the other than the 2, there are also uh, 12 goals that have positive progress, but sad to say will needs acceleration in order to meet the 2030 targets. On the other hand, we have 3 goals that are going the other way. That's goals 3, 11, and 13, meaning we need really an extra interventions here already
So
to reverse the
again, not
progress.
to take up too much time, but like
Yes,
for
ma'am.
example with health, I've been working on health since 2004, and I can state for a fact that we're so much better now than we were in 2004. Doesn't mean we're on track because maybe our data shows, for example, HIV, it's now skyrocketing. There's still the argument that we never used to track it. So did it really just get really bad the last few years, or we're just tracking it in more detail now? So having said that, that's where I want to dive later on and see, how did health get to negative 0.9? I can attest that we're so much better off than we were before. So whether now we're doing more diagnostics and know that people are not as healthy as we just assume that they will healthy, I don't know. So we need to get into that everybody's health.
I think, well, the host agencies, particularly which can provide elucidation here. But this being,
Indicators that you have,
yes,
because I don't want to bring them in yet.
yes,
Like I was
possible.
hoping that we can
Some-
have one or hopefully not 3 sessions where it's just us,
Okay.
and then because this is based on your data. So I want you to show me what brought 0.9 for health, what brought it to negative 0.9, and what brought SDG 11 to negative point. So not now, but that's the next
Yeah.
meeting,
Uh,
yes.
just to provide some perspective, Madam Chair, when you say it's better off, it's what our colleague from UN is saying a while ago. It's the composition of the indicators that we are monitoring that will provide the data, the
Correct.
result that we-
Obviously,
So
this is
yung
based
mga-
on those indicators. So that's why I want to have healthy exchange. We have a discussion so that we can also look at the data that we have. Okay, but we can honestly say there's more, I don't know, like the doctor patient ratio improved, got worse. That's one that should be one. Whether it's your indicator or not, then at least I know, okay, so that wasn't an indicator. No wonder it's not taken into consideration. And that's the point.
So, still there, unfortunately for this goal, a lot of the indicators that we're monitoring are really regressing. So we have 9 indicators that are regressing: neonatal child mortality, communicable diseases, uh, non-communicable diseases and mental health, road traffic accidents, health.
Okay. So as
lahat.
just because each one is so important, what I'll ask you to do, Mr. Cerezo, is because I handle the budget of health, so it's easy for me to, even before our next meeting, is to go to which one, like neonatal, unlike PD. And this is after interventions which include all births will be in a hospital or with a professional birth attendant. So I'm like, wow, and that still didn't help. So I'm a little bit um shocked.
Even
But
worse,
that's not for you, that you're just providing the data. Anyway, let's move on because all of these questions is for another time.
thank you, Madam Chair. If I may, go. So next slide, please. So here's a summary of the indicators that, in terms of their status. So out of the 158 indicators that we have, measurable pace of progress, we have only 97 that are able to measure, and this aggregates to 6 SDG targets. And from these, 23 indicators and 30 targets are expected to meet the target at the current rate, while 50 indicators and 32 targets may need extra effort to accelerate the current rate of progress. On the other hand, we have 24 indicators and 17 targets that are actually replacing. So from here, we may need to focus on these indicators, the ones that need extra effort in order to ensure that we meet the target, and really interventions for the 24 indicators and 17 targets that are actually regressing. The subsequent slides will provide us the details on the indicators. You may be able to see them, Madam Chair, that are really that are regressing, so that that can be focused on, Chair. So here, next slide. This is just a summary of the indicator status by goal. And next slide, please. So from here, we can see that we all have 23 goals that are on track, 50 that are slow progress, and 24 that are regressing.
I actually went forward in your presentation.
Yes.
May I ask that you present this to us instead of by the headings of indicator that are on track, then next is need acceleration. Put it all under each SDG. So under each SDG, I will know which is on track, which is not. And then we can dive deeper. We can do our own homework so that when we come together, we can already ask the detailed questions. In fact, I might even ask my staff to go ahead and ask you that we can just put on record the answers, no?
We actually have that version, Madam Chair.
Okay, perfect.
So we can immediately provide it
Okay,
to you.
thank you.
afterwards. Thank you.
Okay. Um, okay, I'm rushing you just
Yeah.
because I want to give them time.
It's all right.
Yes, you have data gap. So my question to you is there anything we can do to help in the next 5 years, uh, be able to produce more, to be able to include other indicators? Like, are they very difficult to do? It needs a bigger budget. Just tell us what we can to assist.
Well, by and large, the chair, uh, our us as an agency, our main concern actually is just the coordination and submission of the coming from the source agencies and maybe source agencies or student agencies for these
Okay,
indicators.
tell us the agencies that are giving you problems so we can push them
That can be done.
in a nice way. I mean, we'll
Yeah.
do it because you can't study if you don't have it. Okay, I'll leave you for now.
Thank you,
Mr.
Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. So, let me, maybe since you already started, Mr. Kovac, you can, presentation.
No presentation, but I do have a few remarks.
Okay.
Resident
Go
coordinator,
ahead,
if I may.
yeah. Just go. The two of you are UNDP, but one is specialist, right? Maybe we'll go Mr. Kovac, and then we'll go to the SDG specialist, then the economist, yes?
Madam Chair, allow me to first express the gratitude for including the United Nations and Philippines in the work of this committee. Here I have the honor to address you on behalf of the UN Resident Coordinator, who's the representative of the Secretary General in the country. And we would really first like to start with commending Philippines' commitment to global goals domestically and internationally. This is extremely commendable and recognized. And this is important to know because this comes at a time when the planet continues to experience challenges that go beyond the sole power of one actor to address them. And Philippines' leadership on issues such as climate change, rule of law, multilateralism, and other in the region, so among the ASEAN peers, but also globally, particularly among the middle income countries, is invaluable. And this is particularly evident also through the support to the SDG agenda. A few remarks. First, I think on the planning side, the country has demonstrated really leadership when it comes to aligning national and local development plans with the SDGs, and this is to be commended. And the VNRs and Philippine Development Plan are a testament to that. I think it's important to know that VNRs are conducted regularly under full leadership of the government. And what's even more important, or what's increasingly important, and where we see that leadership from the Philippines, is they're increasingly supplemented by the voluntary local reviews. These are conducted by some LGUs, and that really brings to the forefront the whole component of localization of SDGs. So really what we mean by the localization is the process of adapting and implementing the SDGs to the local level, aligning them with specific regional and local context, priorities, and ultimately realities on the ground. Also, when it comes to the Philippine Development Plan, comprehensive, forward-looking, but also agile, this is currently also demonstrated as its ongoing midterm update, which is led by DevDev, which stakeholders are also taking part, in particular also the development partners. I touched upon a little bit earlier on recognizing the diligent efforts to make when it comes to collection and monitoring SDG data. It's not perfect, but I think it's really important to emphasize that this is a long-term effort that requires strengthening of systems and capacities, as you know, at all levels, local, national, subnational, and ultimately underline commitment and also political resolute to share, analyze, and actually use the data for evidence-based decision making. And the Senator Lagarde also mentioned, of course, CPMS, etc., which is really an important milestone going forward. Senator, in order not to take too much time, I think perhaps focusing on approaching 2030 really on our end, crucial to do everything in power to accelerate the progress towards the achievement of those SDGs that are and really strategically focus on those where there's greatest gains are possible, but particularly double down on the efforts where we see stagnation or regression. In some cases, like climate change action, the Philippines is doing a lot and well, but that may not be fully reflected in data and indicators. Ultimately, also because of the enormous burden that the country is under when it comes to climate change. And I think it's also important to recognize that. As you know, the challenge with SDGs is that one is not more important than others. And this we need to make sure that we keep ground and momentum and maintain that across the board, and at the same time recognize that yes, need to doubling down on some of the areas where we see consistent challenges, such as health, nutrition, education, reducing inequalities, promoting sustainable livelihoods, ensuring climate resilience, etc. Addressing the policy gaps and ensuring that national legislation keeps pace with emerging challenges will be crucial. And as you know, the adoption of enabling legislation can really unlock new resources and foster the right environment for innovation. On our end, when it comes to United Nations Philippines, we already work with multiple departments and legislature in that respect, but we will really continue to support your efforts. And I would really put this on table as one of the offers to expand on, in particular in the coming sessions, bringing also on board the expertise of other UN agencies working with the Philippines on that in particular. Fortunately, because this invite came to us a little bit late on our end, we didn't bring that down as a list, but this is really an offer on our end. Also, I think one important note on the financial constraints and gaps, this is a global challenge when it comes to SDGs. And Philippines is not spared by the resource crunch. Yet I think we've seen it's important also to recognize that the country has long transitioned from any reliance on official development assistance or its development financing, and it's really taking a step towards maximize the impact of the available resources, including the leveraging public-private partnership, harnessing innovation, innovative financing, and attracting foreign investments. We do believe that such ownership and leadership is really key and should remain focused on results, prioritizing investments in human capital, but also innovation and digitalization, which are, as we know and see from across the world, really powerful accelerators of SDG progress. To conclude, Madam Chair, UN, of which the Philippines is the funding member, remains a steadfast partner of the Philippines, and we're really committed to continue working hand in hand with all parts of the government, private sector, civil society, stakeholders, etc., to promote the achievements and best practices of Philippines globally. And there are many of those achievements and best practices. In particular, again, offer to you, Madam Chair, from the United Nations country team, specialized agencies, funds, and programs that are working in the Philippines, is really, we remain fully at your disposal, and to this committee, work hand in hand with you and continue to be resources and resource persons or resource institutions for you. I will conclude here, and thank you very much.
Thank you for that. And yeah, the work will continue in the next few hearings. You can get into more details. We actually have only 10 minutes. I will have to attend session. So let's divide the time. You're pointing to your seatmate. Okay, so Mr. Shahud, go ahead. United Nations Development Program economist. Yep.
Thank you very much, Senator Cayetano.
If it will help you, I will call on you again in the next hearing if your time will permit, so we can go into. I leave it up to you to present what you want to present in a concise version.
I would perhaps skip the global regional picture and straight away start with this is of course not direct stop progress on this, but specifically this looks at the progress of the which looks at health, education, and the standard of living, which is measured by income. So much of what we have been discussing, we saw that our national counterparts, that climate change has been addressed in some indicators, that health have also been addressed in how that is translating in the human development outcomes in the Philippines. This year, UNDP launched the Human Development Report, and what we see here is that generally globally human development is slowing down, and it's much the same for the Philippines, with a growth of roughly 1.4% recorded for this year. Among ASEAN countries, Philippines is currently ranked as the seventh country, just below Indonesia. Four countries are below regional average. This includes Singapore, Brunei, Malaysia, and Thailand. And life expectancy and education gaps are areas of improvement. Philippines was what make progress on human. Two indicators in particular, the expected years of schooling in the Philippines and life expectancy level are below the median range for the region in ASEAN as well. The expected years of schooling in ASEAN, the median range is about 13.08 years, whereas here in the Philippines, this is 12.82. Life expectancy in ASEAN is median range is 72.87 years. In the Philippines, this is 69.8. I would like to also emphasize on the key point, particularly on the education. The the UNESCO Education 2030 Framework for Action advocates that countries need to increase education spending by 4 to 6% of their GDP. We saw that here in Philippines, the level spending levels are above the lower middle country averages, but just sit slightly below the levels. But it's not reaching the levels of 4 to 6% is advocated by. So we would encourage, of course, to keep increasing these allocations. But also spending also needs to translate results. If you look at the PISA scores for 2022, which measures the progress on key areas such as STEM subjects, mathematics, science, and reading for the Philippines, they are lower than peers in ASEAN, and you can see this on the chart here as well. Compared to 2018 results for the country, we see modest improvements in maths and reading, but there was an actual slight decline for science. These are, of course, areas for improvement. I would just mention briefly, this is also something important. I know that it may be in a lot of your minds as well, the ongoing trade tensions that are in the region, and simply because Asia Pacific has been one of those regions where we rely so much on manufacturing, and that's because of our reliance on exports. This is something that we all look out. The median share of trade sits at 135% of national for the countries that you see on the chart, and you can see that most of the countries are under tariff, 19, 20%, and growth forecast for this region has also revised twice this year by the ADB, including for the Philippines as well. So this will also have some implications on future poverty figures as well. But I think I have run out of time as well, so I'll probably park there and then hand over to my colleague.
That is so interesting. But staff will do better in the outpatient time because they assume that we will be finished by this time and drastically miscalculated interesting points that you're raising. So, Mr. That's exactly. Just to have it brings this time. It talks about 4.2 billion US dollars. To be accomplished and in certain, but in that particular report,
this one talks about $477 US trillion global. That means that China reached the SDGs is actually even less than 1% the total global. So analysis that there are resources. It's a matter of these resources for the SDG. There is a report that we published in 2023 looking at this development rate. An incident report with zoom in as well on health. So the report looked at available resources, sources of bringing estimation in this report report we would need at least 600 billion pesos until 2030 in this particular analysis so and in the context of things, how or we learn the volunteer actually in terms of how yeah, yeah, or context of the local governments that have implemented voluntary local groups. It also emphasizes the role of non-government actors toward reporting and going around whenever present. This is one of the key paths of CSOs, the private sector, and of other non-government and yeah, in terms of how we can effectively incorporate the results or the insights back towards local level and even national level progress reporting. So I think the idea is that it turns local level progress reporting GC and collecting that plans policy.
So much for that. You already gave us some ideas. We're thinking we can work with the state universities and colleges all over the country. And then they can enter in OAS with the local government and assist this. And this is particularly those SUCs that have already been availing of our teachers. They usually have a point person there already, so that it sounds very exciting. Anyway, we will suspend this hearing. I thank you so much for your time. We'll have a longer hearing next time, so I don't waste your time coming back and forth. Your time is also valuable to us. Thank you so much for it. But we'll do a little bit of work coordinating with you before the hearing, so that we're more we can tell you exactly what we're looking for and take advantage of your offers for a even more productive hearing next time. Thank you so much, everyone. So this hearing is suspended. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.